Thrive Tribe. Welcome back to Survive to Thrive Warrior Voices. Today, I have Sandy Richards with me. She is just an incredible human being that I have had the honor to meet. How we came to meet was interesting. I was actually at a jewelry store buying some jewelry, and I was talking a little bit about the loss of my daughter and some things that I'm doing in honor of her. And the lady at the jewelry store says, "Oh my gosh, you've got to meet Sandy. She's this incredible lady. She also lost a child and she does so many wonderful things to keep her son's legacy alive." And if you all know me, I love those deep connections. So I got right on the phone and gave her a call. And lo and behold, she is an author of such a wonderful book, A Far Cry from Home by Sandy Richards. So Sandy, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us
Thank you
today.
for having me. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. So a little bit about this book. What is so incredibly unique about this book is she writes it in the perspective as if the son that she lost is writing it. And I just thought that was really unique. And we're going to dig into this book, and we're going to dig into both of us being mothers who have lost a child, and what that looks like, and how two people can go through a similar experience, but grieve completely different. And our needs and our wants and everything are so different. And just honoring that, because there's no right or wrong way to grieve a child. But her book, when I first lost my daughter, Sandy, oh my gosh, I purchased a couple of books thinking I'm going to dig in and I'm going to learn about grief. And a lot of them were very instructional, like telling me how to grieve, telling me what to expect, the what ifs, the guilt, all of these things that are standard. And I remember closing the book and I'm like, no, like that's not going to be my journey. Like I know as a coach, some of these what ifs, what if I would have done this? What if I would have, I wish I would have said that differently, can never change. So they're just rabbit holes that end nowhere but in more pain.
Mhm.
And so at that point, I refused. And not to say that they don't come up once in a while, but they don't consume me. What I loved about this book was you in no way at all tell anybody how to grieve. You are simply, well, not even you, your son Tyler, is simply telling a story about the whole experience, all the way up from your guys' relationship to the day that you lost him, and then your grief journey. And it is so personal. So there's all these letters in there that Tyler's friends wrote, coaches, Sandy's friends and family. The book is just littered with these beautiful sentiments, and when I read the book, I had this lump in my throat the whole time, and I was holding back tears just because of the love that I was experiencing. The love you have for your children, because you have another son named Austin,
Mhm.
and the love you have for your community, but the love that you received was just, it was just incredible. And to be a witness of that. And I know when I got done reading the book, I'm like, I love Tyler. Like, I'm like, I just love him. I just love everything about him. And it was so clear why he was, you know, popular jock athlete in high school with all the friends. Like, it was very, very clear. But what was the clearest was his love for you. And I just want to thank you for the vulnerability that it had to take to write this book. So tell me about it. I'm going to let you kind of lead the conversation on what you're comfortable with. Let's talk about the book. Let's talk about your experience with losing Tyler. And this is a great opportunity to tell us about Tyler. Let all the Thrive Tribe know about your wonderful son.
Okay, it'd be my pleasure. When the accident happened, no one's prepared
Mhm.
for that kind of trauma, and no young person in my life had ever passed away. And the fact that I was out of town 4 hours away and had to drive home not knowing, is he alive? Is he gone? I didn't know what to do with myself. So I always kept a journal since I was younger, and I just started writing. And then I found this challenge where if you write 50,000 words in the month of November, and you have to write 1,667 words a day to get a 50,000 word novel. So it's a challenge to see if you can actually write something. And I thought, what a perfect opportunity to get my story out there. And when I started writing the book, I started writing it from my perspective. And about halfway through, I'm thinking, no, this is like all those other books that I've read. I don't want to talk about it. I want Tyler to tell the story, watching everything that's going on. And that was the biggest turning point. And I finished the challenge, and then I had this book, and I didn't know what to do with it. It's like, what do I do with this? So my husband read it, and he's a very black and white, there's not a lot of gray. I went in a couple times to ask him, "So, what do you think?" And he's like, "Just leave me be. Let me finish." And he says, "You've got to do something with this. This will help people." And so I'm thinking, "Okay, I want to do this. I wanna honor my son's memory." Because one of the things that I think parents never want to happen is that your child is forgotten.
Mm.
And if you don't do something to keep that memory alive, it they do tend to, you know, people move on with their lives. 2 weeks after the accident, we went to a football game, and everybody's going on with their life just, like they should. And I'm sitting in the bleachers, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh,
Mm.
I'm here by myself. I'm doing this on my own, and my son should be out there playing, but he's not." And people went on with their lives, and I wanted to do something to help and to give back to the people. I think I told you before, our community is amazing. The way they rallied around our family, and the kids who needed help with their grieving, it was nothing short of amazing. And there's a quote I see frequently at church, and God gives the hardest battles to the strongest warriors. And I'm thinking, So you're giving me this battle, then I better do something with it." If you think I'm a
Yeah.
warrior, I want to help.
Mhm.
So.
Well, I love that, and I think this book is a beautiful tribute to Tyler, but to his friends as well, and your whole support system. So, to give the Thrive Tribe a little bit of context, so this
Mhm.
book has been out since 2013. Your son had his accident. In what year was that? That
That
was
was in 2003.
2003.
Mhm.
Um, so I want to talk a little bit about that. And this happened in Walled Lake, Michigan, right?
Mhm.
Near Walled Lake, Michigan. That's where you're from. So when we talk about this wonderful community, she's talking about Walled Lake. And I grew up in White Lake. So kind of like neighbors. I went to
Mhm.
Lakeland. And so let's talk about that if you can. And
Sure.
only talk about what you feel comfortable and safe with.
Sure.
About the accident, you said you were hours away and had to drive home. So give us some context about that day.
Well, it's interesting that you say you went to Lakeland, because the day of the accident, he was actually in White Lake on Bogey Lake Road, just past the curve before you get to Lakeland High School. And it was Lakeland's homecoming, and it tied up the road. It was around 5:30 in the afternoon. It tied up the road both ways, and these kids were trying to go to their homecoming. And um, being up north, I didn't like being away from my kids. We split custody, my ex-husband and I never wanted to change the time that I had the boys, but some friends wanted to go up north. And so I said, "All right, I'll switch with your dad." And I went up north. And when we got the call, we were sitting in a restaurant, and my phone rang. And before I could get to it, it stopped, and then my friend's phone rang. She got up and went to the front of the, restaurant, and she comes back, and she's got this horrified look on her face. She said, "Sandy, Tyler's been in a bad accident. We've got to go home." Well, little did either of us know at the time, but he was pretty much gone at the scene of the accident, and, here's this kid who of course, he's special to me as his mom, but there was nothing outrageously special about this boy. He just had the sweetest personality, the most loving heart. He had this crooked little smile, these bright blue eyes, and he he was just a good kid, and there was no reason why this had to happen, and what we've tried to put together is he might have been reaching for something, and when you're driving, and if you reach to your right, your left hand will take the wheel and just ease over to the left. Here's the police report, says the people behind them, he didn't he wasn't speeding, he didn't slam on the brakes, he just made a mistake. And, the young woman that he hit, she was a young girl with her baby in a little pickup truck, and, they both were fine. Um, Tyler's cousin was in the car with him, and, he's fine. He actually, broke his ankle, and that was the extent of his, injuries, thank God. But Tyler was pretty much at the scene of the accident. He passed, but they were heroic in trying to keep him alive, and they airlifted him to Beaumont Hospital, and that's where I ended up getting back there about 11:30 at night, and, when I walked into the hospital, my friend, a gentleman I had been dating for a while, he was there, and the tears, here's this big burly guy, and the tears are just streaming down his face, and all I just said, "My boy is gone, isn't he?" And when he couldn't answer me, I dropped to my knees because it's like all this way home, I thought, "Oh, he's gonna make it. He's gonna be fine. He's gonna be beat up, but he's gonna be fine."
Mm.
And then they took me up to see him, and I tell you that when you see your child laying in a hospital bed, all hooked up in bandages, it's like, okay, mama's here, mama's gonna fix it. But there was no fixing it, unfortunately. And I got to give uh, big props to his dad for keeping him on life support until I got there. So his chest was moving and he was warm when I saw him.
Mm.
But that also negated the fact that we couldn't donate any of his organs because he had been on life support for too long. So
You
it
know,
was,
I wanna stop you right there for just a moment because that was such an incredible, thing when I read that, and I know you guys have been divorced for, what, a year and a half or something like that. And divorces are never easy, they're never fun, they're often complicated, especially when you have children. And I'm reading in the book that she insisted
mhm,
that that he stay on life support. And Marie in well, Tyler explained it that
yeah,
his dad said to the doctors, like, you are absolutely not going to take him off that until his mother has a chance to come and say goodbye. And so I'm glad you brought that up because I thought that was the most unselfish thing someone could have done, especially after a divorce. There's usually still that, oh, ways I can get them kind of thing. So what a gift that he was still able to find it within himself to give you. So
mhm.
that, yeah.
It was
Anyways,
it
well,
was perfect. I mean, him and I are the 2 people that know that child intimately,
yeah,
and, you know, he put aside, whatever
everything.
everything to make
Everything.
sure, and, I wanna think that in my heart, I would have done the same thing for him had
Mhm.
I been home and he was gone. Um, it's just the last thing you wanna do is see your child, not breathing, and
Yeah.
that.
That's
Remember, just like it was yesterday when I walked in the room, I looked over to the corner, and in the corner was Tyler's best friend Adam and Tyler and his mom Trish, and they were sitting in the corner just holding each other. And I mean, it's things like that that you remember, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, you know,
Mm.
what a testimony to friendship, you know?
Yeah. I am so sorry. That day had to been extremely horrific, and it's a day that I know that continues to live on in you every single day. And again, writing this book, I hope you found that to be healing.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
there's
Absolutely.
other things that we'll dive into later that you're doing to honor Tyler, which I think is incredible. I want the Thrive Tribe to know, and I don't want to give away a lot of the book just because it is a special book, and I'd recommend everyone read this because again, it's not a how-to book, it's not a self-help book. But what it really does is make you feel connected to the child that you lost through Tyler's eyes.
Yeah.
And so it was really a gift you gave to all of us. Throughout the book, you talk about your journey. And and after Tyler passed, because of Walled Lake being such an incredible community, and he was in sports, he had a lot of friends and coaches that, in fact, there was 600, was it 600 cars in the procession? And that just seems, well, first of all, it is so incredible. But when you're grieving, that's a lot of people that are also grieving. Um, how did you how did you process that? Because I know for me, just even calling my best friend that has known Hope since she was born and having to tell her it was brutal. And I had such a hard time supporting other people that are grieving my daughter. So how did you manage to get through all of it? And you didn't just get through it. I mean, you just kept showing up and showing up and showing up. So
Mhm.
talk to us about that process.
Well, it all I think it all started with, Lynch& and Sons Funeral Home in Walled Lake. They are the most caring and giving people I have ever met, and they are in the absolute right business for them. When we went there, Tim Jr. and Tim Sr. were there, and they knew that it was going to probably be big, and they were trying everything they could to make it so that it was comfortable for people to come in and out. And there's a church across the street, St. William's Catholic Church, and um, they opened their doors to us for the first time ever in the 60 years that the funeral home has been there to a non-parishioner, and thankfully, they did that because the church was full. There would have been no way they could have done that at the funeral home, and I remember walking out and getting in the car, and it's like, "This is surreal. Where am I going? What am I doing?" And we get to the funeral home, and the cars just kept coming and coming and coming, and then the people all around, and it was like, to what the Lynches did, they had 6 of his friends were the pallbearers, and they were in their football jerseys, and they were, took the casket out of the car and put it where it needed to be, and I I think that helped me more that they humanized it for me, even though my brain was a mess. They helped me realize that they cared and that people cared, and that's why they were there. They were there to support to support our family, our just normal little family, and all the love that was floating around. It was amazing. And, then there's the aftermath of all of that, you know?
Mm.
Yeah, it was 2 year, well, he passed away in 2003. His graduation, was in 2005. He would have been the first graduating class of Walled Lake Northern. And, so there was graduation time. There was prom time. All of those things I had to experience without my son. The kids allowed me to be a part of their lives. They invited me to their graduation parties. They invited me to have take pictures with them, and all of them always said, they said things, or they had something set up with Tyler's picture or something, so they didn't forget him. And it was amazing. But the communities of White Lake, Walled Lake, and Commerce Township were phenomenal, phenomenal.
I'm so glad that you had that kind of support. But it
Yes.
had to be, because when you lose a child and you go through that devastating trauma, it's overwhelming. Like, there's so many things that you don't even think about. So, um, just all kinds of things you have to do that, and you've never done it before. So I just remember, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I, looking back, have no idea how I got through it. But now, like with Facebook and all the things, like shutting
Mhm.
down accounts and making sure her driver's license is shut down so nobody steals her
Social
identity.
security
Just
number,
so
yeah.
secure, yeah, like all of the things. And so on top of that, all of these things are happening in like his senior year. I think that's one of the hardest things when you lose somebody, is all the things that you're going to miss out on.
Mhm.
And you wildly chose to still be a part of his senior year, his prom, his, senior night, all of those things where I don't know that a lot of us would even think to do that, or that it may just be too hurtful. But you, in fact, you went to was 28 graduation parties
28.
that year, open houses, 28. Lord, I get 5 of them in the mail, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I got so much to do this summer, so many parties and weddings, and I've got like 5. Um, tell us about that. Like, what made you want to be a part of that? Because I know it had to be painful, or was it? Was it more healing? Maybe it was more healing. Give us a
It
scoop on that.
it was painful, it was healing, it was cathartic,
Mm,
I'd come home and I would sleep for hours because I was emotionally and physically drained, but I wanted to celebrate with those kids what I wasn't able to celebrate myself, and every single one of those parties, they had a little something set up in memory of Ty. And even when we went to the graduation ceremony up at Eastern, there was another young man who passed away 6 months later. So they had two chairs set up at in the auditorium at Eastern, and they had their diploma, and they had a rose on it. And I, I, I couldn't I couldn't not have gone because these kids have been a part of my life since the boys were in kindergarten. And how could I not celebrate with these beautiful kids who I swear saved me in those early months? And there during the graduation service, there was a huge thunderstorm, and the lightning and the thunder outside, it was like, "Ooh, who's orchestrating all of this?" We walk out and there's a double rainbow, and I know that that was Tyler and Ryan that just said, "Hey guys, we're here. We're
mhm,
celebrating too." And,
mhm.
uh, each one of the parties gave me one more piece to that puzzle of mending my broken heart, you know?
Mm.
And as messed up as I was, it still was something I would have not missed for the world. It
Um,
was yeah.
you've mentioned these kids saved you. Tell me
Mhm.
about that. How did they save? What did they do that helped you go through the very worst time of your life?
They for 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they knew exactly what to say or not say. They stopped by the house. They'd come and pick me up. They would text me, and that was when texting was a little different than it is now. And they would text me, or they would come over and say, Mrs. Richards, I just thought of another story. I gotta tell you this. So they would share these stories with me, or look at the pictures I found. I can't believe Tyler dressed like this, or, this is a funny story. Those things absolutely saved my life because between the kids and my sister, I have to say my sister, she was my rock. She lived with me for the first 3 months afterwards because I couldn't be left alone. It was that painful and devastating, and, um, I I had no intentions of doing anything to myself, but the grief and the pain was so strong, I needed her, and she was right there for me the whole time. Tyler was her godson too, so it was important to her, and, these kids, anywhere we went, they would see my car and they would honk, and, it's just letting me know we're not forgotten. And I'm not sure if there's some psychological reason that you don't want to be, you don't want your child to be forgotten, but there's got to be something in there emotionally, physically, mentally, that you really want that love shown. And I kind of liken it to clicks on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. It's that little bit of a dopamine that I think actually kind of made you heal a little bit,
Mhm.
knowing that they're
Yeah.
there, and they're around. And I still get texts 23 years later. I get Mother's Day texts, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, that kind of thing. So
Well, I think that that tells a story on how you were and how you showed up for those kids, because kids don't just do that,
yeah.
for their friend's parent, right? And the fact that they're still texting you, or that they even go visit Tyler, right? And they've
Mhm,
left letters and they've left poems, like these poems that these kids wrote. I was like, I'd never seen somebody kids write poems before,
mhm,
and
mhm.
so, but this is back 20 years ago. So maybe that was a thing back then. But I mean, because now it's just so everything's online, right? So to
Mhm.
see
Yeah,
these
yeah.
these
Well, Facebook
letters,
wasn't around when
yeah,
he passed.
gotcha.
And I'm kinda glad it wasn't, because I think, as beneficial as social media can be, I think it's also can be kinda destructive in its own
Mm,
way, and I'm really glad that that wasn't around at that time. 'Cause
yeah.
it makes a difference in people's behavior, I think. But
Mm,
out at the cemetery, we're in a small community cemetery, and, I go out and visit him, and there's pennies that people leave, there's cans of Red Bull, it's just all kinds of cute little things I find all the time, and it's pretty neat.
that is beautiful. I love that. And I can see how that love helped carry you through all of that. And I think that a lot of people are afraid to talk about our children.
Mhm.
They're afraid to bring it up because they don't want to hurt us. And I'm just wondering if it's because these kids were so young that they didn't know that part of it. They didn't
I
know,
think so.
like, you know what I mean? So they're just going to talk about them all the time. So that's
Exactly.
interesting to me if you think about that, because society kind of says, don't say anything because you're going to bring up feelings, you
Or you're gonna
know,
say the wrong thing, and you're gonna
you're going
make
to,
her cry, or, you know, I think my healing would never have progressed the way it did if I didn't hear from these kids, and people I didn't even know were sending letters and saying, "We saw it on the news, or we saw it in the newspaper, and I just wanted to say that we're really sorry for your loss." And it's like, "Oh my gosh, how amazing is that, that people take the time out of their busy days
yeah,
to, say, "I'm sorry,"
right. To a
for your
complete
loss.
stranger. Right? To a complete stranger. That's
Mhm.
incredible. And so when in doubt, reach out, you know?
Exactly, and you know what? You're never gonna really say anything wrong. If you don't know what else to say, just say, "I'm so sorry for your loss,"
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
There are some things that people said that, I don't think they realized how it came out, and if they really thought about it, they probably wouldn't have said it, but,
Mhm.
I didn't take any of that as being mean. It was just they don't know. I mean,
I don't
I
know.
wouldn't have known what to say, Yeah.
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 And we've talked a lot about that on different episodes of this
Mhm.
podcast, is that kind of like what not to say, but it really does come from a place of people wanting to help,
Mhm.
and they don't know the answer. And most people are naturally wanting, like, are fixers. So in their
Mhm.
mind, they'll try to fix things. Like, I remember one was, and I was like you, I heard it. I didn't get upset or get angry with them. I just, here nor there. But when given the opportunity to say, like, this is probably not the best thing to say, I just say it, because how else do we learn from it? But so many people, the very first thing they would ask is, well, do you have any other children?
Yeah.
And what does that have to do with the loss of my daughter? Like,
Right.
that does,
Right.
like, what does that even mean?
Mm.
Right? Because almost right away it made me feel like I should be okay because I got other kids.
Yeah.
Right? And again, it's not that they're meaning any harm by it, uh, or it's you know, what are some of the other? And there was
Well,
quite a few of them.
because I have faith and I know I believe in Jesus and heaven and all that, and somebody would say, "Well, they're in a better place right now." And it's like, yes, they are in a better place, but the
Mm,
best place would be right here by my side, going to their graduation, going to their prom, going through their first heartbreak, all of those things. That's the
mm,
better place. But I knew that when they were saying that, it was coming from love, not from trying to hurt me, you
right,
know?
for
And
sure.
yeah,
I
so.
agree, and I got that one too. Well, she's my daughter went through a lot of trauma in her life, so I got a lot of, well, aren't you happy that she's at peace? And I'm like, no, I wanted her to be at peace in her life because she
Mhm.
deserved it then.
Right.
And if she's at peace, I want to see it. I want to feel it. I always just longed for my daughter to have that kind of peace and love and all of those things. And it's like, and I'm a believer too, and I believe there's a heaven, and I believe she watches over me. And that's the other thing your book did, is it reiterated that for me, and any doubt that I might have, like,
Mhm.
from time to time, because you always wonder, like, but what if, you know?
Mm.
Um, Tyler reminded me. And I even might have said something to you like, I hope he goes and he needs to go find hope and be like, girl, we need to watch over these ladies.
And I when you first contacted me, and I didn't know all of your story until the first time we talked, and it's like, doggone those 2, they set
Yeah.
this up. And people will look at me and say, "You're crazy for thinking like that." But I don't believe in coincidences. There's a reason why we've met. Now, whether, I know you're helping people through all of the things that you do. In my little piece that I can help, I hope I'm doing that. Um, you know, uh,
You're
that
doing so much. Yeah. And I believe our kids let us hear, and they're probably sitting back right now going, finally, you're getting on here.
and look at
Um,
those 2.
Yeah, yeah. They're talking about us again.
Yeah.
Like my daughter, she loved attention. So she's like, yeah, keep talking about me, mom. But I wanted to read. This is going to be a little. It's part of your book, and it's a journal entry that you wrote. And because, like I said, throughout the book, there's pictures of Tyler. There's all of these letters and stuff that the kids wrote. There's also journal entries, and this one stuck out to me the most because, as we know, grief is not linear. It is all over the place, and you may feel all the stages of grief in 1 minute.
Mm,
If 5 minutes, you can literally process that, especially in the early days, because your nervous system is so out of whack,
correct.
and it doesn't know where to feel safe anymore. And so you feel very scattered and alone. And I want to talk to you about, because we talked about how you showed up for all these kids and your community. Um, But yet, when you would go home at night, you were suffering immensely, as any parent would that lost a child. And so I want to talk to you about how both existed at the
Mhm.
same time, because it's not that you were out putting a face on or pretending. I think you authentically showed up for those children. Um, but it's very challenging to balance both. So I
Yes.
want to talk about that, but I want to I'm not going to read it word for word, but I do want to read a part of this journal entry to show where you were at during this time. So this was a couple years even after Tyler had passed, because it was written in 2005.
This
And
was the
so,
one right before his graduation when he should
okay,
have been graduating.
okay. So it starts with, it is just beginning. Austin, which is Tyler's brother, 16th birthday party, prom, Ty's birthday, commencements, senior all night party, graduation open houses, on and on. One long continuous nightmare. I make people so uncomfortable. They don't know what to say around me. Maybe it would be best if I didn't attend things pertaining to the senior class. Come see me, Mama. Come see me. Mama, come see me. Mama, come see me. Mama. It won't let go. What do you want me to do for you, Ty? The hopelessness, the pain, the nausea, the tears. Why do I bother? No one can understand. And there's another part that says, come see me, Mama. Come see me, Mama. Live like you were dying, and someday we'll be together. Oh, pretty woman, amazing grace, in my heaven. I want to be like him. Amazing grace. Come see me, Mama. Drift away to the spirit in the sky. And then the na 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 na, hey, 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 goodbye. You can't help but sing that when
Yeah.
you read it. Suspicious minds keep me down. Don't know who is for real and who wants me to fail. I give and I give and I give some more, but everyone else goes on about their lives. They have their children and families intact. I haven't seen my precious grandmother in so long. I wonder if she even thinks of me anymore. She must think I don't love her, and that's so not true. I just want to go to sleep and never wake up. I don't allow fun in my life. I am wasting days, weeks, months of my life. For what reason? Badly need to get away. Can't run from all of it. It follows me like a cloud. Got to start my book. It is just waiting. It has been waiting. It has been 20 months, 20 long freaking months. I can't eat scrambled eggs or French toast without thinking of Ty. And then it just goes on to say, well, the sleeping pills are the only thing that numbs it all out. Sometimes it takes more, sometimes only one glass of wine will do it. I catch myself gasping for air on my hands and knees to stop myself from screaming and crying. Huge tears are flooding my heart. I'm drowning in my own tears. I will love you forever. And then Tyler said, so this is not you writing anymore, because this book again is written from Tyler. Holy shit. I I watched her go through this night after night, just rambling about her empty heart. She jumped from one topic to another, and those song lyrics, they all have a special meaning tied up in a Tyler bow. Believe me when I say that as wonderful as it is where I am, my heart breaks as I watch my mom beat herself up every single day. She puts on such a great front for all to see. It's Oscar material, quite frankly. If our family and her friends really knew what was going on inside of her bruised mind and the dark recesses of her soul, there would definitely be an intervention. And the hits just keep on coming. And that, my lady,
Yeah.
was so profound, because that is what grief looks like.
Mhm.
And not many are willing to say that out loud, let alone publish it in a book. And I know it's because your intention is to help others
Correct.
that have gone through what you've gone through. And even though you don't put it out as, again, a teaching lesson, I think that that was part of um, your goal, right? Is just to be authentic. So other mothers like myself, when I in 5 minutes would go, but this and this and this and that, and just jump all over the place. And I never wanted my life to end, but there were times where I'm like, I can't live through this.
Yeah,
I don't want to live through this. This pain is too heavy. I just want to go be with my daughter. I wasn't suicidal though, but those thoughts happen, and we don't have control over those incoming thoughts. Where our control or our power comes in is how we react to them, right?
exactly, exactly.
And,
And
and go ahead.
I had to hide all of that from Austin because he
Mhm.
was only he was 14 when the accident happened. When he turned 16, he couldn't wait to drive, and it was my worst nightmare going, "Oh my gosh, I don't want him to have his license because what if?" There
Yeah.
comes that whole "what if" song that you sing to yourself, you know?
Mhm.
And, I I I I didn't want him to ever see me broken, there was a lot of nights that I was broken, and in that section that you read, when I wrote it, I never thought I was gonna put that in a book where everybody and their brother can read this, but you know what? It's real. It's real life, and that is what it is. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, for somebody else to go, "Oh, well, yeah, it's easy. I can get through this," you know?
Yeah.
It's tough, you know? Mm.
What I love about it is you're so human, and you're not afraid to show it. And what it did is give me, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but what it did for me was give me permission to be all over the place.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, you are you're an author. Not only did you write this book, you've written children's books. You do many things in honor of Tyler. And I want to talk about that. So you've remarried,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And Tell You Thrive Tribe, you got to read the book, but Tyler definitely had something to do with it. And the way it's written
Yes,
is
it
so
does.
cute. It's like, how many times do I got to put this man in front of you, mother, before
Yeah,
you do something? It was awesome. I loved it. But
and I was blessed with 5 bonus children and their spouses and 10 grandchildren. I mean, they would love their brother Tyler, and the kids would love their uncle Tyler.
and I'm
They
sure
love
they
their Uncle
do. They
Austin, and
love
and
him
they're a lot
now.
alike.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sure they love him now because you keep him alive in people's hearts.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
just, like I said, as soon as I close that book, I'm like, I love that kid.
Yeah.
Like, I just love that kid. And you gave that to me. And I'm sure that's how a lot of readers feel when they read your book. But how did you navigate that to where you were trying to not be broken for Austin or for your community? And I'm sure for the other kids, because you probably felt a sense of like you had to be strong for them, but go home and feel so lost and so empty and isolated. And I love your sister lived with you for 3 months. That is just incredible that
She's the
she did that for you. But it doesn't matter how much anyone shows their support, because I got some really great supportive people in my life, but you still feel so alone. I can't put my finger on what causes that, but you just feel so alone. So how did you navigate both worlds at the
oh,
same time?
I would I would go from, being at a game and talking to all the kids, and then I'd go out to the cemetery, and in the early days, I literally was on my hands and knees wanting to dig down because I needed to see him, I needed to touch him, I needed to talk to him one more time.
Mhm.
And I knew I couldn't do that in my logical head, but my mama heart, I would have dug with my hands to get back to him. Um, I think seeing the smiles on the kids' faces, it just did something for me. I don't know whether it released endorphins or what, but I didn't want them to ever have to feel what I felt when I went home. So you put on this and I don't wanna say a mask because it wasn't a fake thing, but I didn't want them to have to experience they experienced enough in their young lives, losing their friend, that I didn't want them to ever have to feel the real pain that's in there, and
Mm,
I tried, I just did, like, the best I could do, and then, when I had my private time,
mm,
it's when you break down,
yeah. So for me, like, because I lead an all women's Jeep group, and and being a coach, and I lead sport groups, and all of these things. I mean, I didn't do all of that when Hope passed. I did. I was the leader of the Jeep Babes and still a coach and all of that. But and I always ask myself, like, how did I show up for both? How could I lead one moment and be that inspiring person or that go-to person when people are having a hard time? They'd reach out to Jamie.
Mhm.
They need little Jamie on their shoulders is what they'd say. But yet, come home and cry myself to sleep, or feel so isolated and alone. And it was like that was my relief. That was my little bit of sense of normalcy when my world was completely shattered.
Mhm.
That I knew how to do. I knew how to lead. I knew how to be a coach and inspiring, and I didn't want that taken from me. And it sounds to me like you were like that neighborhood mom, right? With so much love to give to them. And that I'm wondering if continuing to be supportive of those children and attend their graduation parties was giving you a piece of normalcy in your world that was also so shattered.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I've always been hardwired as the giver, the protector, the
Mhm.
the person that, wants to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And, to go and celebrate with these kids, if it gave them one little bit of peace in having lost their friend, it gave me mountains more of peace just for me. And, it wasn't simple, but it was something I built to do.
Mm.
And I loved every minute of doing it, as hard as it was, and as much as it broke me at times. I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
It wasn't I felt obligated to be there. I wanted to be there. And I also wanted to show Austin that you too can work through this grief, because sibling grief is totally different than parental grief. And he struggled for a number of years, and he now it's 20 years later. I mean, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago is when he finally wanted to start talking about his brother, and he doesn't have a problem bringing up stories and telling tales and all the crazy things they did. So yeah,
Sibling grief is something that, I've talked about on this podcast before. It is so overlooked sometimes, and us as mothers can see why. Like, I did a podcast with a lady that lost her sister, and she felt so overlooked, like she didn't have the right to grieve. But it was her best friend. I mean,
Mhm.
she was there since the day her sister was born, and she cared for her and had to babysit her and be the step-in mother sometimes. And when I did that, I thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, did I give my sons like that support or opportunity to grieve? And they're boys, and they hold a lot in. They feel like they have to be the strong one for me, you know. But I'm like, I had to step back and think from to myself, like, did I abandon them in their time of grief? Like, and I think I did to an extent because, again, your tunnel vision, you're just trying to figure out how to breathe. Everything else going on in the world is just a blur,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Well, Austin
mm,
shared with me a couple years ago, and I don't know how we got on the topic, but he says, "Mom, when you came to the hospital, I was standing in the doorway of Tyler's room, and you got off the elevator and you ran down the hall right to his bed. You didn't even acknowledge me." And it's like, "Oh my god." I didn't know I did that. I didn't do it on purpose, and I started crying. It was like, "Oh my god, I'm the worst mother. I'm horrible. I can't believe that I walked right past you and didn't see how you were doing." But I think in my head, I knew he was with his dad, and I knew that he was safe, and his dad was taking care of him, and I had to take care of him over here. And it crushed me. It's like,
Mm,
"Oh my goodness. I can't believe I did that."
mm,
But, again, it's your brain is not thinking clearly,
no.
and, I just oh,
Your body's reacting. So like when that happens, when trauma happens, your body reacts before the logic kicks in.
mhm,
And so when
exactly.
you're there, your body was just going straight for your son that you knew needed you. And I remember a part of your book. I for some reason just thought about this is because earlier you had mentioned how seeing them bandaged up and things like that is horrific because as a mom you want to fix that.
Mhm,
You want to take care of their boo boos,
mhm,
and I know you grabbed a washcloth and you were trying to clean him up, and you
mhm.
held that washcloth for years, right? You carried
I
it
still have
everywhere.
it. It's in my purse. It's in a bag in my purse. I carry it with me all the time. Throughout the whole funeral, I had that piece of washcloth with his blood
Mm,
on it, and that was my support animal right there, and I kept it with me, and because I would have people ask me, "So, do you really have that with you?" I'd open up my purse, "Yep, right here," because it keeps me connected to
mm,
him,
mm.
um,
Yeah.
a psychologist or a psychiatrist might go, That's probably not a good idea, lady," but you know what? For me, it helps me. It
Mm.
helps me.
That brings up a great point, Sandy, and I love that, is that there are no rules
There's
to
no
grieving. And something might seem so out of this world, but if it works for you, do it. Like
exactly.
you have the power to grieve exactly how you want to. And like showing up to these events that you'd went to 28 graduation parties in one summer, right?
Mhm,
Um, and like me showing up for, my stuff, there's that fear in the back of our mind. Well, for me, I don't want to speak for you, but in the back of my mind that people are like, oh, look at her. She's over there laughing. She's fine. I'm glad to see she's doing so well when I'm dying on the
mhm.
inside. So how do you, how do you get past that message of that? So, because what my fear is there's parents out there that don't go out in with their friends or to graduation parties or weddings because they don't want people to think that they're okay because they're not, right? Uh, talk to me about that.
Well, there's a bigger piece to that, and I think when like in that little excerpt that you read there, I didn't know if I should be going places because I thought I made people uncomfortable because, "Oh my god, there's Tyler's mom. What do we say to her?" And, "Should we ask her to help with the senior all-night party? Should we, do this?"
Mm,
It's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's what I want you to do." But they didn't understand that that was okay. And, that was a tough thing for me to overcome and say, "Okay, you know what? I gotta do this for me. I don't wanna make people uncomfortable, but I need to do this for me. I need to participate." Because since the boys were young and started in sports, we were always the parents that brought the snacks, and we took them to the Dairy Queen, and we were the president of the booster club and president of the wrestling booster club. Yeah, it went on and on and on. But that's just me. That's who I am, and that's what I do, and, yeah, I
the only way to fix them being uncomfortable is showing up, right, and
showing
showing
up,
them that you're
and the
okay.
more they see you, the more it's like, "Okay, alright, she's good," and, even to go out to dinner with some of my friends that are moms, that were from that time frame, they still don't really wanna talk about it a lot, but then I'll kinda make them. I said, "Remember Tyler's birthday when John and Troy and, came over and they were being crazy and they made all these faces and stuff." You know, I want them to talk. I want them to feel comfortable because I don't want to in turn feel more uncomfortable, you
Yeah,
know?
feeling bad for bringing up your own son, you
Yeah.
know? And, oh gosh.
Yeah.
So when you wrote this book, um, what do you think, how do you think Tyler feels about you writing this book? Like proud?
Honestly, I think he's probably very proud, and I think he's happy that I found an outlet for me. And
Mhm.
whenever I would meet with grieving moms, a couple grieving dads, I would present them with a journal, and I said, "Start writing." Just every day, if you write one sentence, then that one sentence is going to turn into two. And pretty soon you're writing a paragraph and then maybe you're writing a page. But what you're doing is allowing yourself to get those feelings out so that you can heal. And I think he's probably smiling down and go, yeah, that's my mom. That's
Mhm.
what she
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be amazed that, one day you make it to heaven and Tyler tells you all of these things that he put in your pathway, and you're like,
Mhm,
you're going to be like, that makes so much sense now,
mhm,
and that's, just like, and I was just recently on vacation and Hope loved the beach, loved the palm trees, and she loved animals, like all those things. And every time I went out to the ocean, there was a feather. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I knew that that was her. And a lot of people say, well, that was just, there's always feathers in the ocean and they can say what they want. But because I opened my mind enough to choose to
mhm.
believe, that was a sign from hope. And that's all that people have to do.
Yeah. You
If
just
you
open
want
your
to
heart.
see the signs, you open your heart and
Yeah.
your mind and you decide, as ridiculous as it may seem to others, it's none of their business.
Right. Right.
That's between you and your child. And you can create ways to feel connected to your child. Doesn't matter if it seems wacky or not. If it makes you feel close to your child, freaking do it. That's
Yeah.
all, do
Well,
it.
like Tyler's dad, and I think men do grieve a little differently. He has the ability to put his feelings in a box, put them up on the shelf, and he can take them down when he wants to. He doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeve like I do. I mean, I'm pretty much an open book, and I'm what you see is what you get. But he has that ability, and I think that's helped him do his healing because in his private time, he can take that little box down and go through all those things in his head. You know, me, I have to see it. If you could see my office, I mean, there's there's all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
about that people have given me. You know,
I love it. Oh,
so
that's beautiful. So
yeah.
talk to me about the ways that you're honoring Tyler's legacy today.
Well, one of the things that is most near and dear to my heart. Family started a scholarship program when Tyler first passed away because there were donations coming in, and we were fortunate enough that we didn't need to do anything. We didn't need to use those. We were able to put it to a use to give back, and they opened up at the time it was called Central Scholarship Funds, and now it's called Legacy Scholarship Funds. And Tyler Scholarship is one of 52 scholarships that are managed by this nonprofit, and I'm part of the executive board of the nonprofit because that's what I love to do. And um, so we opened that, and over the past 20, we started in 2005. So in the past, 23 years, we have given over $40,000 in scholarships to two students at Walled Lake Northern out of each graduating class since '05.
Wow.
And
So
it's
every year for
so
20
fulfilling.
years, a man and female
Mhm,
graduating that year
mhm.
is eligible to get the
Yes.
Tyler
They fill out
scholarship.
a scholarship application during the application season. They all come to me. I go through them. I read them all. This year, I had 61 applications. And most of them were from young ladies. Boys,
Yeah.
they're not so much on writing little essays, but
Paperwork.
that's okay. They're typical boys. I got two, and I know, I know. um,
Yes.
but it's amazing the answers that these kids, and my questions are very simple. who was the most influential person in your high school career and why? And it ranges from parents to best friends to teachers. And the teachers part is what I love. And I cut those out and I send it to the teacher. They don't know who it came from, but I get emails back from the teachers saying, "Oh my gosh, thank you for this. When I'm having a bad day, I pull these out and this is why I do what I do." And it's so fulfilling. Um, we do that. There is a memorial wrestling tournament every year at Walled Lake Northern that the wrestling team uses to raise funds for that. And yeah, it's legacy is probably is so aptly named because it is a legacy for all these young people. It's not just young people that have passed, it's also retired staff or staff that have passed on. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful opportunity for
I love
kids.
that. And then how do people support that? How can they help with the scholarship, either funded or do you have a, website?
But
How
they
do you
can
how do you raise money for it?
Well, we've been very fortunate. We haven't had to do any fundraising for a while, but we're tossing around doing a 25-year golf outing, 25-year anniversary golf outing in 2028. And that will be the first one we've done. We did 3 golf outings initially to kind of get the fun started. And then we invest very conservatively, so we're able to keep it going.
Mm.
Um, but on my website, sandy-richards.com, there's a link to Legacy. Also on tylerrichards.com, where I have all the photos and little information about all the recipients and the different awards that we give out for the Walled Lake Braves, their sportsmanship award, and then the wrestling. So they can visit both of those websites and it'll take you right to it,
I
to
love that. And I
Legacy.
love that Tyler has his own website. What a big deal he is. I
Yeah.
just love that.
And
I know he
what's
probably
so
all has that
cool,
too.
his uncle well, he, not by blood, but his uncle, and they loved each other terribly, um, and Uncle Bob bought the domain name in 2003 when he passed away, and I'm so glad he did because I probably would never have gotten it if I'd have waited, and then we've had a couple updates on the website since then, but now it's just all dedicated to him and all the good work that we're trying to do.
How long did it take you to start going from like feeling consumed by grief to taking your grief and using it as a tool to move forward? So turning your pain into purpose. Talk to me about that shift.
My journey, the first 10 years until I wrote the book, that was kind of what really gave me the purpose. That
Mhm.
those 10 years I was finding myself again. I fell in love. I got a new family. Had a support system, and it's like, I need to do something to give back now. And I need to have that purpose, like you said. And I was hoping that between the book and the scholarships, that I can make that my purpose and
I love
supporting
that.
these kids.
I love that. So tell us what you want us to know about Tyler. Tell us about your son.
He he had the best little smile, a little crooked smile, and that's what when you read the book, almost every one of the notes say, "I miss your crooked smile." Um,
Yeah.
he loved Elvis. Mom's a
Okay.
huge Elvis fan, so we would watch Elvis movies together. Austin, he wasn't quite so much, but he will. And he actually dressed up as Elvis one year for Halloween and thought that was just the coolest thing. And all of his friends are like, "Dude, what are you doing? Who is
Yeah.
that?"
Right. Who
Uh,
is that?
he was a decent student. He was not a 4.0. But he loved playing sports. He loved hanging out with his friends. They'd go tubing and, pickup games. And they had a trail behind our house, so in this woods, so they would make all these jumps for their bikes, and he was a bit of a daredevil, but he was a little more of a manipulator. He would tell Austin, "You do it first, and then I'll do
Oh,
it," you know?
yeah.
"You do it first," you know? And he just, he was just a sweet kid, heart of gold, and his friends meant the world to him, and again, I think that's part of why I wrote the book the way I did, so these kids understood how much they meant to him and how much they meant to me.
Mm, I love that.
Oh,
Yeah. And what an, I mean, I'm curious, like, how those kids feel seeing like their letters and knowing that you're honoring them, because that to me is such a gift you're giving them. And I just can't say it enough. Just like when I read this, like I said, it to me, it cracked open some things for me, because I, through my grief and stuff, I really went into, I'm just going to get really busy.
mm,
You know, I don't know that my nervous system is quite ready to deal with this. And it would show up in like little spurts. The first year I was just in complete shock.
yeah,
But I believe that, when they say time heals all wounds, it's been my experience, as of right now, and it's going on 3 years. And it hasn't even been 3 years. It's gotten harder. So the saying it gets harder before it gets better, I relate to more than
because it's becoming real. It's
yeah,
like you're kind of to that acceptance part, but you've been through the denial, you've been through the anger, you've been through the bargaining where, "Here, please take me, I'll do anything," and
mhm,
then the depression hits, and then you kinda get to acceptance, but, all those little stitches in your heart, you're gonna keep stitching that up for a long time, and like you just said, like, at 3-year mark, it finally hits you. They're not gonna be sitting at the Christmas table this year or the Thanksgiving table. They're not gonna be there for their birthday, and that is a brutal part of the process.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely brutal. But one thing that like your book had me really thinking is like, I do the trauma survivor ambassador program. My goal is to help other survivors. This
Mhm,
podcast is in honor of my daughter, because just getting people's stories out there, it's healing for everybody, right?
mhm,
You hear you're doing something else to keep Tyler's name out there and keep him alive. But it's hopefully reaching like listeners that are like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that. That's me, right? So I'm trying to do all these healing things in her honor, but I I realize like that connection. Like I need more of a connection with my daughter. And one is she's not buried at a cemetery. She was cremated. And, and I started feeling this way actually a couple of months ago, but it was really like I need somewhere, something, even if it's in my yard, where I can go and sit and be with her.
mhm,
I have her urn in my living room, but it's very weird. I guess it doesn't feel natural to be sitting there talking to an urn. I guess I shouldn't say
right.
weird. It just doesn't feel natural. Um, I am a late night person because my husband goes to bed. He's very, he's a very 8 o'clock, he's going to bed because he gets up at 2:40, 2:55 every morning to go to the gym
Oh,
and to work. So he's very much on a schedule, and I stay up, and that's my time, um, to like my time with her.
yeah,
Most nights is that's when I will get either emotional or just talk to her, think about it. But it would just be really nice. Like I need to find ways,
uh-huh,
like you did, to keep that connection alive, because like you, at the beginning, I was seeing signs, and then it seemed like they started drifting away.
they do.
And yeah, and then it's like, no, I need those back. Like
Mm,
like you, I beg God, I beg her, I beg anything that listen, give me a sign. And then, but I noticed that when I start thinking about it, they start popping up again.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I wonder if I get in my own way of just getting so busy in my daily life
They show
that,
up when you need it the most.
yes.
That's what I found. It's like when you're having just one of those really bad days, and I mean, I commend you for the work that you're doing with Haven and
Thank you.
helping these people. It blows my mind that you are able to be that involved in doing all the things that you're doing so early in your grief process too, and
Mhm.
that's very commendable. Yeah. You're an
Thank you.
inspiration. You definitely
I
are.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I guess, well, you can relate for sure. What's I know that even like your book, it's even though I say it cracks something open in me, it's you write it in such a genuine way that it's just a beautiful book. It's not as sad. I mean, it's heavy because we're talking about a loss of a child in grief, right? In that sense, but it more felt like connection and, like I said, love, just love, you know? What message do you want to give to other grieving parents? Anything that you wish you would have known, things that you've learned throughout the process that maybe can help somebody else not experience pain? Just
Well, you have to go through it, yeah, to heal it, and I know there's a couple things that I wish I had done, and I brought it up to a friend of mine who lost her son a few years ago. Keep a lock of hair before they close the casket. Take a lock of hair because I don't have from the baby times, and I
yeah.
wish I had just a little lock of his hair. Um, for me, how the story goes, I he was leaving to go to his football game. I was standing in the doorway of the house, and I had already said, "Goodbye, I love you. Mom won't be there tonight, but I'll be thinking about you." But that was when we were getting ready to go up north. And I swear to you, it was like I got a push on my back that said, go to him. And I go up to the car door and he rolls the window down. I says, I love you, buddy. And I'm your biggest fan. Don't you forget that. And that's the last thing I said to him.
Mm,
And if I had not run out there to that car and had that, whatever that was, that said, go tell him one more time, you know? Um, I just think, tell your kids every chance you get it that you're proud of them and that you love them because you don't know. You don't know when the last time you can talk to them will be.
yeah.
I don't want to get modeling in that, but it's a reality that you have to live through. Mm. It's sad, but I know there's one part in the book that I wrote, and it's in life as in death, everyone makes choices. You can choose to languish in despair and make friends with your grief, or you can choose to hope, smile, and to honor them in our living. Um, and that's kind of the whole mantra that I decided I'm not going to wallow in that grief because it can take you down a very dangerous road. And there's some people that I talk with occasionally, and they're still in that even 10, 15 years later. And it's like you've got to bring yourself out of that and find, like you said, your purpose and a reason for living, a reason for going on. And
Mhm.
honor those that you love and share those memories, because there comes a point where you run out of photos. Like, I don't have any photos after September of 2003. It's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, yeah, I don't have any more pictures," and you keep
Mhm.
looking through them and you wanna post pictures, but they're all the same because you don't have anyone anymore, so take those pictures and tell them you love them and go do all the things go to the games because they know you're there, and it could be, concerts, it could be anything, but make sure your kids know that you're there and you show up for them. Yeah,
I love that.
that's big. Yeah.
Yeah. And write down, like, I one thing that I wish I would have done is, like, I can't remember the last thing I said to Hope.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe one day it'll come back to me, but I wish I would have wrote some of those things down. There were so many, and I'm not a a journal person. Like there's always one more thing I got to do at the end of the day. It's kind
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
way it was for me. But I wish I would have wrote things down. Like there was moments, and I can't even tell you what the moments were. I just remember going, I got to remember this.
Hmm.
And now I don't remember what those were. So as
And
hard as it
your
is,
grief brain doesn't allow you to remember like you normally should. I
yeah,
mean, there's a lot of physical things that come along with grief, and there's that saying, "You die of a broken heart." There, you definitely that could happen. I mean,
that
it,
is a
it
true
and it has
metaphor.
happened. It's just you can't get past the horrible grief.
Yeah. I would say, even with that, I wish I would have reached out to a friend and said, write these things down for me
Hmm.
because I'm not the writer, which, at the time, and I didn't, take the time to write those things down. I just didn't have the energy to do that. I wish I would have said, hey, when I had this thought or this emotion or this feeling come up or this sign from hope,
Hmm.
and I want to remember these. So do you mind writing these down for me? Uh, so reaching out and
Even now, you're gonna remember things, so just have that little journal next to you and just
yeah,
jot it down. "Oh, saw the raccoon. The raccoon wanted to sit in my lap." Make sure that's written down so
yeah,
you don't forget
yeah.
that, you know?
I need to, right in my drawer here. I have this beautiful. It's so funny because I'm going to bring this up. My One of my best friends wrote
Oh,
thoughts,
yeah.
and because she says the same thing, she wants me to start writing all of this stuff down. And she gave me this. It says, "Hope is calling 1-800-HEAVEN."
Oh, I love that.
And this was, "Hi, Mom. It's me, Hope, sending love from beyond the moon." Because we always say, "I love you to the moon and back." So she gave me this little phone, and sometimes you pick it up
Oh,
and you just call her. Like she's just on the other end of that
yeah,
line. But so
that's
as silly
beautiful.
as some
That's
of these things, thank you. It was her idea. But as silly as some of these things can be, create them. Do whatever brings that smile to your face, and you don't need anyone's approval.
right.
You don't need anyone's permission. Damn it, no one asked your approval or permission to lose your child, right? So
Yeah,
why do you have to have anyone's approval or permission to grieve?
absolutely.
I just always say there's really no right or wrong way to grieve other than if it's destroying who you are,
Right. And
you
there's no
know?
timeline. It's gonna I will probably not stop grieving until the day I see him again.
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah,
a matter of to what degree,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. You're still allowing this wonderful new family to come into your life and in the love of your life. And you're still allowing those things to come into your life. And it's just so, so, so important to
Mhm.
know that it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to do that. But I think that the last thing, and I kind of want to end it on this and get your thoughts on this, is that our children, so Tyler was this beautiful young man that had a lot of great close friends. He was in wrestling. He was in football. I mean, he got his varsity jacket when he was a freshman, right? His varsity letter. So he was very athletic, and he had a whole community to back him. And anyone that's an athlete and on a team, that's like a whole family in itself, right? Um, Hope, on the other hand, was she went through a lot of trauma in her life,
Yes.
and which led her, um, I want to say, to the not the greatest people, no one that you could consider a true friend for her that really looked out for her. And so when she passed, she didn't have 600 cars in the procession, right? I am so blessed with a huge community of people like my Jeep babes
Yeah.
and friends and family and my in-laws. They're just wonderful people. But for hope, like there was that, and so what I'm getting at is that there can be two people that go through the same experience. We both lost a child
Mm.
at a young age,
Mhm.
and we both lost him tragically, unexpectedly. But we have completely different stories and journeys.
Yeah.
And it's so important that anyone out there listening, just because your grief journey may not look like Sandy's or look like mine doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong,
Right.
you know?
It's
And
not as important. It is just as important to honor your child in
yeah,
the best way you can.
yeah. So what do you say to that when how do, people honor, because one thing that drives me crazy is when people go, I know exactly what you're going through.
Yeah.
No, you don't. And,
Don't.
I can relate to that kind of loss,
Mhm. You can
right?
sympathize, but you don't ever wanna empathize, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Like I don't know exactly because every situation is different and everybody grieves differently. Everyone has their own lenses, you
Mhm,
know. So that's where I think what's important is that's where the loneliness comes in
mhm.
as a
Yeah,
grieving parent
yeah.
is no matter how much support you get, and it's and we need that support and we're grateful for that support. But there is that sense of loneliness because no one truly gets it. And I don't care if you've lost a child or not, they don't get it. And people don't understand
Mhm,
everybody else's either. I can talk to you and not fully grasp the the hard, traumatic journey that you went through. Even reading the book, right? No one will ever 100% get it. So, what can we do for mothers and parents that, or even siblings? Because, like Austin, what a beautiful kid he is, and he was athletic, and I'm so glad that he's able to talk about Tyler now.
mhm.
Um, but that sibling loss needs to be acknowledged, right? And
It
and
does,
and
it
it
does.
needs to take up some space. And so stop saying like, "Well, how's your mom and dad doing?" It's how are you doing? They just lost their best friend
Mhm.
because either way, one of them has been in each other's life their entire life.
Yes.
So my boys were older than Hope, so they have had Hope. They had, well, Hope was in their life for 20 years, right?
Baby sister.
Right. And they were in her life her entire
Mhm,
life.
mhm.
And it's just so important that we acknowledge that. But it's so much responsibility in such a difficult time to think of all that. So, if anything, have grace
Grace.
for us,
Absolutely.
but have grace for yourself, most
And
importantly.
that's the most important because we kind of forget about ourselves when we wanna try I'm a fixer. I mean, that's who I am, and, eh, you forget that, okay, you need that downtime, you need that little pampering to bring, yourself back in check, you know, I don't know if there's any fast rule to help anybody other than make a road for your grief and let it go down this road and talk to whoever will listen to you. There a lot of people, they shy away because, oh gosh, I've heard that story 14 times. Well, I've told it 8,000 times. I want to tell it again. If you can have the grace to listen and just say, tell me more. Tell me more. That is the biggest help that a grieving parent can have. I love talking about
Ask
it.
ask about
Both
them.
of 'em.
Like my friends will go, so tell me about hope. Like just out of the blue, tell me about hope. And I'm still at the point where that will instantly do the lump in the throat, the tears in the eyes, and my mind goes blank. But there will be a day I'll be like, oh, girl, you probably going to regret you just asked me that. And just talk out. And I'm looking forward to that day, and I know it exists. Um, but I think the more people ask me, it gives me comfort knowing that I'm not being a downer
Right.
or I'm not making them uncomfortable. So for the loved ones that maybe you have a friend or a family member that has lost a child, I think it's great to ask them
Mm.
about their children. And if they're not ready, like I'm not all the time, um, then just say, well, when you're ready, I would love to hear more.
Yeah.
about it. I want to hear everything. I want to hear all your favorite moments, your yeah. But
Well, a great opening is if you know the people is tell your memory of
yeah,
what you remember about this person's child, and then that'll get them started. That
yeah,
will be kind of like putting the pedal to the metal, and then they're gonna wanna talk and talk. And, like, I know when my grandkids come in here, they see all kinds of stuff in my office, and they'll say, "Grammy, you wrote a book?" And I said, "Well, I wrote a couple books." And I said, "One of them you can read when you're a little bit older, when you're about 16, 17, but it's all about him, and I'll show his pictures and that." And they timidly ask some questions, and, you gotta do it age appropriate, but, they all know, they know where he's at, and I have my one little one, she says, "Grammy, are you sad that he's gone?" I said, "Yeah, I'm very sad, very sad." I said, "But I have you, and you make me smile."
yeah.
So,
I love that.
yeah.
I think we'll always have that piece of sadness in there. And that's why it's so important to find balance, you know? And I love that you're honest with her because you're giving them such great lessons in keeping Tyler alive and giving them somebody else to love, you know?
My 3 oldest, they're all driving now, and it's like,
Ugh.
oh, and that's hard. The third number 3 is 16, and she just got her license, and it's like,
Mm.
oh, the stories you wanna tell tell them, but, you gotta temper that. You don't want them afraid, and you don't want them
Mhm.
to go off the deep end and not wanna be out in that, but you just want them to be very careful and let them know what a responsibility it is when they get behind the wheel of a
Yeah,
car. Yeah.
for sure. That's got to bring up a lot of trauma reminders. I just had that
Mhm,
workshop last night about
mhm.
that kind of stuff. And that's, it brings up the what ifs
Yeah.
and do they know this? And you want to stop it before anything happens because you know the pain that comes with that,
And the triggers
but you
are
can't.
crazy, like
Yeah,
the trigger you were talking about going into the closet and your husband came up and how that affected you. I
yeah,
mean, I know there were certain things early on for me. I mean, I left a whole shopping cart of groceries in the grocery store because I went to reach up for a packet of angel hair spaghetti. That's what Tyler loved, and I couldn't do it. I mean, the panic attacks when they
mhm,
talk about, your vision going in like this and your
yeah,
heart's gonna beat out of your chest, you can't breathe, you can't sleep, you can't eat, you can't think, you can't do anything. I just ran out to the car and, it's like, is this ever gonna end? But
mhm,
it does. It does.
yeah.
It does.
It gets easier to manage.
Mhm.
I think we'll always have these. I try to call them trauma reminders because triggers to me that word is just triggering in
Yeah.
itself, but it's reminding us of a trauma.
Mhm.
And but once we can acknowledge them and we can name them and what they are, is kind of what I talked about last night, then we can pause and choose a different reaction
Right,
and not let it drop us to our knees
right.
years and years later. It's going to, naturally it's going to, right? But then when you can acknowledge it, you
You
take its power away.
Exactly, you have the control, and that's why I think
Yes.
most when you're in the early, especially the early stages of grief, you don't feel
Mhm.
like you have any control over anything, and then I know I had no control over I felt absolutely powerless, and I was given a lot of medication, which I wish they had not. I know they did it for the right reasons, but your brain is an amazing piece of equipment, and it needs to do what it needs to do to help you heal. And if you're masking it with um, antidepressants and things, you're not letting it do its job. And for
Yeah.
me, after about a year, I said, I can't be a zombie like this anymore. So I weaned off, and then it's like, whoosh,
Yeah.
all that stuff that I should have processed in the first year, year and a half, now I'm doing it in year 2, 2.5, 3, and it's like, "Oh my goodness gracious." If I knew then what I know now, you
Yeah.
know,
And I
um
think that's a wonderful thing to end that on is that you definitely have to heal it.
mhm,
You have to feel it
to
to
heal.
heal it.
Mhm,
And, I think naturally, yes, anything to help with our anxiety and our pain. Um, Most people naturally would want that. Um,
mhm,
but in the long run, all it does is delay. It
right.
delays the inevitable because you're going to have to feel it to heal it
Mhm.
eventually.
And there's
But
nothing wrong with a little bit of an
no,
anti-anxiety or something,
no.
but when, it's multiple and
Mhm.
it does nothing but numb you out, that's
Yeah.
not a good not a good way to handle it, but
Well, I love that you could recognize that and you didn't become dependent on it, thankfully, but
yeah.
that you could recognize that it was doing more harm than good.
Mhm.
That's the key thing. And if people need, things like that to help them with their initial grief, there's nothing wrong with that because sometimes you need time to adjust. Like your
Right,
body or your brain, nothing is prepared or ready for it.
right.
But it's being aware, checking in with your doctor, and just
Mhm.
like if it ever gets to the point where you like felt it's doing more harm than good now,
Right,
that's a great time to wean off. But
right.
see, I know this was such a heavy conversation, and I know it's never easy to go back and talk about that. So I
And it's an
cannot be.
important one.
It is. It is so important, and I am so grateful for your courage and your bravery to be able to come on here because I know that this conversation alone, well, it helps me and it's going to help so many people that are listening. And so I'm going to put in the description your links so people can learn more about Tyler and
Okay.
and and get your book and see about all the scholarship stuff and what that does. It's a beautiful way that you are living out his legacy and keeping him alive in your heart. So I appreciate you being here. I want to say to my Thrive Tribe, I really want to thank you for being a part of this conversation. I do, especially if this is a subject that you can relate to. When you're done listening to the podcast, please take a few minutes. Put your feet on the ground, put your hand on your heart, and take some deep breaths and remind yourself that you're safe in this moment. Sometimes we have to ground ourselves
Yes.
after heavy conversations like this. Again, I will have all of Sandy's information in the description. I really would encourage anyone that can relate to this to get her book. Again, it is not a self-help book. It is not a how-to grieve book. If anything, it empowers you to grieve exactly how you are, and it gives you permission to grieve the way you are, the good and the messy. That's what I love is she has no problem holding back that it got really really messy at times. So thanks again. I hope that you guys subscribe, like the channel. Please leave a comment letting Sandy know um, how her bravery has helped you today. And if you do read her book or have read her book, please go on to like Amazon and leave her a review because that just helps boost it and gets it out to more people like you and I that can relate to Sandy. But thanks again, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode of Warrior Voices. Have a great day, everybody. Bye bye. Bye, Sandy. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.